So Chris Rapucci resides in non-urban places, spends time with dogs practicing celestial psychomodeling, metaphysical design, and narrative conditioning for a variety of clientele, and pours lunacy into images and writings, seeking an integrated lunar zodiacal experience with reality through research and direct engagement. Elodie is a French-Canadian astrologer currently living on the island of Newfoundland. Research, divination, teaching, archaeoastronomy, and the study of various healing modalities are her main interests outside of simple living and communing with nature and animals in the most embodied ways possible. And so I will now hand things over to the presenters. We will have time for questions at the end, so you can feel free to put those in the chat, those who are watching, as we progress.
Thanks so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Great work. So, hello everybody. Thank you for being here. I guess we just got presented, so I'm not going to repeat my name. So today, for those of you who are not acquainted with our work, do you want to put the next slide, please? Whoops. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so for those of you who are not acquainted with our work, you can find our research on lunarzodiac.com. Over the past several years, we have lectured with the Association for Young Astrologers. We have our own lectures on our website. We also do daily forecasting with the lunar zodiac that you can find on Instagram. And we do monthly podcast delineation of the new moon and the full moon with the lunar in the context of the lunar zodiac. And for that, you can register to our mailing list on our website, which is lunarzodiac.com, to receive that monthly podcast. It's not published, like, it's not open to the public, but if you register, you can receive it. We've talked extensively about the technical aspect of our research, our process, and our work. So if you want to get familiar with the more technical methods that we employed and our whole sort of theory, I would encourage you to listen to previous lecture. This will be the first time today that we present a synthesized version of the meaning of each mention, as we have come to understand them through comparing the three main traditions: nakshatra, Chinese mention, the Arabic tradition, our own field work, which include observational element and ritual trance component every night. And since the moon changes through the 28 shapes over the course of a month, we have spent and gathered hundreds of hours of observation. So like I said, this is the first time where we are synthesizing our research into really condensed, abbreviated version of each mention, or each shape, as we call them. So before, every time we've presented on this topic in the past, people have asked us, what is the meaning of each mention? And this is it today here. For the first time, we'll be doing this. And I just want to mention, when we will be beginning, that the keywords that you're going to see for each shapes is actually a condensed expression of 3 years of research and engagement with the 28 shape, 28 lunar mention, as the moon crosses the territory. So we didn't just pull these out of a hat randomly. Those keywords are an abbreviated translation of each shape that came through after many years and many evening, many night of research.
I want to mention that when I got started thinking about all this, and when Elodie and I started working on all of this, the first time that I noticed someone compare or say that the mentions were present in a list from the Greek magical papyri in the Prayer to Mene as the 28 shapes of the world was in reading Jake Stratton-Kent's Geosophia. And I kind of just, I read that page, and then I spent the rest of my life since then just thinking about the man from like this one entry from the PGM and really just this one list of 28 words for the next like 5 years. So that's what we've been doing. And shout out to Jake for pointing that out. So yeah, Elliot, you mentioned some stuff about our methods and approach. Just going to kind of acquaint everyone with that. As I said, we use the list of the 28 shapes of the world from the Prayer to Mene, from the Greek magical papyri, from the syncretic period, probably penned in Thebes. We contextualize everything that's present on that list, every entry from that list, the mythological archetypes, through looking at all of the Greco-Egyptian possibilities of what each thing could be mentioned. You'll see the list coming up, so you'll know what I'm talking about. Then we take that, our kind of reaching out through those Greco-Egyptian mythological archetypes, and we compare that to the Arabic lunar mansions from the Picatrix, the Indian nakshatras, the Chinese lunar lodges or Shu, and then especially in the Grimorium Verum, which seems to be timed to lunar mansion schema, and the New World traditions, namely Brazilian Kimbanda, which derives some of its material, some of its content from the Grimorium Verum. And so those are the main things we look side by side. And then we've spent the past years comparing all of those to try to sync up and see what's the thread that carries across all these traditions, because these traditions interpenetrated and they flowed through time and space. There isn't an original, or as far as I can tell, there's no original or tradition of you'll hear us say what's commonly referred to as the lunar mansions, because the word lunar mansions is just what the Arabic tradition called it, but it has different names in different geographies and different times. But everyone always experiences the moon going around the ecliptic every 28 days and the sun going around the ecliptic every 365 days, as we do today. There's everyone always experienced that, and it was free to observe. So I'm sure everyone has always been looking at these patterns. And so we've looked at the Greco-Egyptian, the list which is in Greek, in the Greek magical papyri, and translated the words and done etymological analysis. And we're going to go through that also in Arabic and Indian and Chinese, etc., to see what originally people were trying to say when they were talking about these mansions. And we developed a protocol to call in Hecate, kind of based in a PGM modality, and then from there to call in the shape every night. And that's what we're talking about when we've done this, gone into trance states, tried to channel visions to have impressions of the drawing. So not only are we doing this comparative research, we're also getting a direct experience every night when the moon moves through these places and try to just see what's coming through. And we also do automatic writing, which you'll hear some. And we did this for years to try to see what patterns developed, so then we could compare those patterns to the comparative research material. And then we, as LD was saying, we forecast every month and we forecast every day, trying to do predictive work with what we've compiled, and it's turned out that it tends to be accurate. We've gotten a lot of feedback, so it seems like these things that we're pulling together are cohering. And then from there, we consider holistic integrations, especially with the Chinese material, where the mansions are all over, like feng shui and classical Chinese medicine. And you see in the PGM, that seems what people are talking about, that this stuff goes into your body and it's related to everything everywhere. And then we've done a lot of field work every day to try to be thorough with the aggregation of information.
Yeah, so this is just an example of basically the Google Docs that we fill daily as part of the comparative and observational study. So we would just filled in for each mention, the dreams of the day, daily occurrence, body, sensation, emotion, because we're talking about the moon, lunar consciousness, any magical activity that took place, synchronicity, vision, and then report the drawing that came through, the channel writing, some commentary. So the first year we did that, we didn't really know. And then after, after a year, many rounds of doing this, we were able to start comparing with the previous ox shape, the previous each lunar placement, and start really compiling the information.
And a lot of considerations came up, like, and like when we're taking all of that comparative material, how does it line up? Because you'll see all of these different mentions from the medieval period, from the classical period, from now, of like, where is the start of the lunar mansion and where do they sit against the stars? Is it tropical? Is it sidereal? And what we notice is that just comparing 1 to 1 to 1, first mention, from every tradition, second mention, there seemed to be a coherent pattern that 1 is always 1, 28 is always 28. It's not moved over in sidereal or tropical, like fixed for the era. It coheres most when you just put them side by side. The reason for that seems to be that under the base of everything, there's a tropical layer, which is ideal, and it's phenomenological. It's the solstices and equinoxes, it's light and darkness. As I was saying, that is reality. We can't get out of night and day. We can't get out of our circadian rhythms, our metabolisms, our libidos, our procreative urges. Like, we're here on Earth. We're experiencing light in night and day, and those are changing. And the moon is going around every 28 days, and the sun's going around every 365. So the stars, where the stars mark the mansions, changed over the centuries, over the millennia, and you'll see that the different content in different cultures, like even in the first nakshatra, seems to have suggestions of Gemini, which means that it's that this tradition is very old. When the equinox used to happen in Gemini, the Babylonian stuff seems to start in Taurus. The Arabic stuff seems to start in, which is from the medieval period, seems to start in Aries. And so it does, like, when you see those mentions of which kind of a zodiacal, 12 sign zodiac, archetype is present in the first lunar mansion, that just time stamps it to when they were talking about. But reality is always happening. Eventually, the first lunar mansion over thousands and thousands of years will happen in every one of the 12 solar zodiac signs. So it doesn't really matter. There's still a nature of the first mansion, a nature of the second mansion, no matter what stars are there. The stars interact with it, but the mansions themselves track the phenomenological cycle of light and darkness, from vernal equinox to summer solstice to autumn equinox to winter solstice. And the moon goes around every 28 days, remembering what the sun sees every 365 days. So it's a sole lunar cycle where the lunations and the eclipses that occur are emphasized, and they make a secondary sequence rather than the 1, 2, 3, 4 ecliptical sequence of the sun or the moon's passage around. So the main sequence is always vernal equinox, is the beginning of the mansions. And there's variation to this, which if you look into our AstroMagia lecture from last year, we talk about possible nodal starting points and how these things overlap. But just for, as the mansion, there's the 28 tradition, which is hardwired into reality, and humans have experienced for hundreds of thousands of years. We've built up a memory of these associations, that's seasonal, phenomenological, directional, the sympathetic archetypes that embed in our body, and so the story continues and continues, and we are always adding more realization and epiphany to the layering of the continually increasing complexity of what it is to be alive, if that makes any sense. And so we partake in this. That's why we're talking about a direct encounter. The material's there from text for us to be like, well, what did they say in this geography at this time? But we're also humans interpenetrating and observing what it means for the moon to go around the ecliptic every 28 days for the rest of our lives and everyone else's.
So this was the introduction. So today's presentation, what you're about to be invited into is in part synthesis and then one part performance. So you're going to see drawings and you're going to hear words that were selected amidst hundreds of channel drawings and writing that came through during our nightly ritual trance and engagement with the 28 shape. So sometimes the voice that comes through that we'll be reading, this is all channel writing. Sometimes the voices that comes through the writing can seem odd or brutal or funny. Sometimes it tells stories from another time. We've tried to select things that were somewhat representative and synthesized. With channel writing, it's always interesting because there's a lot of mumbled words and stuff like that. So but you can hear it coming through. So one thing that's worth paying attention as we progress through the shapes, we're about to progress the shape, is this, there seems to be an inherent progressive pattern that seems to be telling the story of life and death as we experience here on Earth. So from shape number 1, we get hints of moment before birth, even before inception. And then as we progress, we move into more procreative shapes and currents, and then slowly towards death. And what we've noticed is that the last 7 shape, the last 7 mention, seems to be dealing with more post-mortem state and transition of the soul after death and towards rebirth again. And that's also reflected in the Chinese mention, as Chris said earlier. I think it's the one that's the most kind of reflecting that sort of pattern of pre-birth, birth, creation. I don't know if you want to comment on that, but
yeah, I mean, it's that cycle. It's the cycle of waking up every morning and going to sleep every night. It's the seasons as they move through the year and how they all relate to each other. But yeah, like the Chinese material, since being the most holistic, it considers how all those things interrelate. And I think we can see that in the PGM probably being a much more holistic text than people realize.
So finally, as I said earlier, this will be more like a performance than a technical presentation. That's why we said at the beginning, if you are interested in more of the technical sort of reasoning behind our work, you can find our previous lecture. So this is more of a presentation of the channel drawing and writing and a synthesis of the 28 shapes. So I invite you to sit back and listen to the voices and hear the stories and witness the forms as we progress through the 28 shapes. And then we'll have probably 20 minutes left at the end for questions. So enjoy.
Just gonna run through the Proto-Mene. I call upon you who have all forms and many names, double-horned goddess Mene, whose form no one knows except him who made the entire world. Eow. The one who shaped you into the 28 shapes of the world so that they might complete every form and distribute breath to every animal and plant that it might flourish. You who wax from obscurity into light and wane from light into darkness. And the first companion of your name is silence, the second a popping sound, the third groaning, the fourth hissing, the fifth a cry of joy, the sixth a moaning, the seventh barking, the eighth bellowing, the ninth neighing, the 10th a musical sound, the 11th a sounding wind, the 12th a wind creating sound, the 13th a coercive sound, the 14th a coercive emanation from perfection.
Ox, vulture, bull, beetle, falcon, crab, dog, wolf, serpent, horse, she-goat, ass, kid-goat, he-goat, baboon, cat, lion, leopard, field mouse, deer, multiform, virgin, torch, lightning, garland, a herald's wand, child, key.
I have said your signs and symbols of your name so that you might hear me, because I pray to you, mistress of the whole world. Hear me, you, the stable one, the mighty one.
First shape, ox, that sits between 0 Aries and 12 Aries. Initiating, beginning, dawn, awakening, opening, inception, creative spark, fallopian. Give me shape from the shadows of the abyss into concrete forms, a trial to determine how and why and who must rise from dawn. Circles of light. The torments are shaping themselves. The mechanics are always the same. I open my mouth in the morning light, and the harp sounds augur the dawn. The tuning fork resonate in the space of fire between blades and flesh, sewing back together what was different and cutting away what was the same. I bleed through it all and reveal a new tapestry. The sun rises as the vital conductor, placing the disparate players into perfect forms. We cry and rejoice for the becoming. The table is set, rejoice from the void. Golden threads weave themselves around everything, and the fire catches.
Second shape, vulture, 12 degrees to 25 degrees Aries. Regeneration, recycling, topographic, permacultural, landscapes, perspective. In the apothecary of white blood, opacity and pearlescence, we pry open that which is bountiful and impress it into itself, into all destroying what is left, the evil fruit. The distance a bush travels, rotted, old crone, whispering many languages at once, more than one tongue in her mouth. She keeps me secret, for it is the places I roam which have no eyes, and ladders they burn from the top down. Angels are dangerous. We keep ourselves infused with poyara dust. It is our destiny to die blood-covered in each other's arms. Nothing will obey our torment. In arcades, under carnival tents, in one day and out the next. We are all animals underneath our skin, and with our over-skin fur we wait to feast, beating eyes, blood pouring to our gold-collecting neck, fresh cargo. Please end my tenure with the mark, beast for me in limelight.
Third shape, bull, 25 Aries to 8 Taurus. Sacrifice, honoring, vessel, veneration, offerings, cooking and heating. Sing the story of the beginning and the end. Bleeding from the mouth, foam of wonder and creative agent, deviant forms, acid and bones stirred into the cauldron of becoming. There is a road, so come to it with crossed candles and upside down offering to the Queen of Chaos. Under the covers of darkness, there is a war to enchant the future. There is no becoming without a scream. The need to appease the gods. You can have it all, but sacrifice are required. Put that on your grocery list.
Fourth shape, scarab, 8 Taurus to 21 Taurus. Transmutation, beacon, navigation, pathways, guidance, network. No destiny can hold the thousands of strings and fate lines issuing forth from the archangel of the desert, opening pink light from the dry dirt and rocks. Moo mire by time, starlight time, no window to reverse the world. A calm woman washing her hands of the scandalous deeds of her family and absolving the sins of her ancestors, so even in their tombs their scars vanish as their souls are cleansed. The brackish water green and choppy white, with thin breakers lit from beneath by oxygenation and phosphorescence. A glowing skeleton wanders the salt marshes by the seas. My melting hand, a man of wax, and flaming tears, crying for the yet born, so their mothers summon them out. Green fabric white with the sickle moon and a star, sharp like death. Name a nebula after me. dream day's dictator.
Falcon, shape number 5, 21 Taurus to 4 Gemini. Succession, vision, sight, apotropaic, averting disaster, oracular. I watch from the tower. I have eyes on the ground. I see the songs that elevate, but most are useless. Purity is misunderstood. Sight is misunderstood. The place of royalty is misunderstood. The place of kings is a place of threat born out of dominion. Standing on a peak, you cannot hide in plain sight. Vision is the dominion of the hunter. I have a map that has nothing on it. The confluence of wisdom and knowing creates the world, but the bewitching is powerful. If I was to ask you a riddle, you would lose your mind in torment. My splendor is hidden. Birds of paradise fear me. Don't assume things about the world. It's the perch vision that raises the bar.
Crab, 6 shape, 4 Gemini to 17 Gemini. Churning, turbulence, spawning waters, earth and ocean powers, great potential. Make the ring of acceptance, the boiling point, when inside a fang without any antidote. My ghoulish child and the sick cousin of my ghoulish child, splitting the world with a hammer, purple and orange, orange with black feathers, orange and white, all white, but metallic within, and beneath the waters for making the metabolic change, and spheres laughing and joining in with onagers in the manger, where conspirators congregate, and tomorrow is a bubble of black slime, priests with toothless faraway eyes, begging for mercy. But my faith is gone, the holy water drunk down by a thirsty vagrant and a bleeding clown, to no one's surprise again. And the way anger is spread on TV, sicken it and stop it. Magic thread to sew the story together, and they'll all be there upon the dream called death, the blue, demure, licentious, filial portion of semblant sex. No higher belief.
Shape number 7, dog, 17 Gemini to 0 Cancer. Scent, searching, feeding, foraging, scavenging, resourcefulness. There is a great snake that sleeps in the darkness. Reach it through your blood. It's a constellation, a procreative fountain of pearls, joyous in the night, hiding behind wars. Invisible streaks across time funneling the light. It is not what is, but what is not that matters when the loins are involved across centuries. The perpetual wheel of desires ignites the wind that makes it all spin. If you can't be quiet, at least be true. The only way around is through timelessness. The sun rises and shines for everyone.
8th shape, wolf, flooding, gateway, water source, nourishment, confluence, traversing, 0 degrees Cancer to 12 degrees Cancer. When we reach the brink and retract our teeth, seize into gold and pierce it, rending some of reality's percepts torn asunder, moonlit scraps. When we enter into congress with an animal, pieces of our hearts are torn. We're never the same. We may become without blood someday, and upon that day our mother will shriek, and all mothers before her, until the rock split and the moon rushes out. And the children of the moon, evil with milk and light, they are poisoned. They abuzz, grinning with electrical teeth, an incident, a murder, but only written about in a story. But in that story, someone dies, and others go far away. And last night is no different from any other night. It is night, Nyx, in pools of deception, whirlpool and rock. My slight deformity attracts you and at once repulses you. In paint of Gauguin, we peel our poets apart, in Nereid balm, frozen.
Shape number 9, serpent, 12 degrees Cancer to 25 degrees Cancer. Recoil to the darkness like a black sun. Everything is intertwined, and when you pull on a thread of the tapestry to unravel things, everything changes. Earrings drop to the floor, a creak, a chime, a slithering back into the shadows. I wait for my name. Some call me selfish, but I am not a family man. I am wedding bells for some, eternal symbol for others. I hide inside a hat, dormant until the next trick.
10th shape, horse, 25 degrees Cancer to 8 degrees Leo. Breath, movement, intermediary, connecting, linking, operator, rallying. Destroy the metalark, the trifornarium, the corpus maleficorum, by bond of Fornius siege centauri. There is a brook with no end, no severed head weeps for long. My longest stare is the maxim of the speed of God chiseled into stones at the foot of statues. Calculations, scribal endnotes, whole cultures between brackets. And here we come, summon us awake like apparitions at the foot of the bed, suspended childhood, sounds stretched to insanity, overtures to the insane. My rule of thumb, the rolled over Renaissance, wheels of flame. No garden is too sweet. My garland preserves all ancient forests and holds diseases in assailants at bay. So ride with me, salamanders on my crest, for my name is Pier. Repeat 1,000 times.
11 shape, she-goat. 8 degrees Leo to 21 Leo. Between pillars and opening, on the surface it's pink and inviting. Energy is lost when you cross the threshold, but there is no other way out. Panic sets in, but joy is the key. Mountains and valleys flourishing under blue skies. The threats are absent until night. Conscious and unconscious makes the blood. There is no other way. Illumination rises. Steps and narrow corridors, pathways to the archaic places, a platform to launch, a stand on which to look further, a rock sticking out of the mountain on which to perch.
12th shape, asp, DNA, bloodline, merging, arranged procreation, light sequence, prismatic. Incarceration pleasure dome in patterned tread, slapped to skin and hooked like light and dark. The mauve and black spreading wet wall, interior all where gray was something else, replaces screaming eyes. The blue slick trim and fit black leather-lined interior chamber for amber oval on seat of spiral teeth. The room behind the room. The hanging gardens of smoke curls and crows where the mafia sits and make and receive messages. The shop front mock-up swings aside to reveal the inner sanctum. Even the shopkeeper was fake, the framer's art to contain a painting. Gold clip and glass eye, blue slit. For if any reason this phone rings, do not answer it. My father's name is Coal Run Black Angel Mercy. I am the borrower of all until it is too late.
13 shape, kid goat. 4 Virgo to 17 Virgo. Fruiting bodies, puberty, development, growing, littering, awakening, rite of passage. You are the child holding the grandmother who holds the clock that moves backward. Bowls of fruits on the table laid out, shapes in the shadows gather for the feast. Who was it before me? Knocks on the door, garlands and tea. You wanted guests? Here they are. 2 hands on each side of the light for guidance. The unborn child retracted into unison, 1,000 eyes ready to incept, onlookers and destiny crossing paths surprisingly.
He-goat, 14th shape, productive, libidinal, rut, lusty, musk, penetrative. In the east I speak, and of things I desire and enter. The mist soft loins, open and gray like memories departed or offerings left. When thoughts are forgotten and the mind returns to zero, I come up from behind to brandish a flame-top staff. An acquisition of my flame is ecstasy turned to bright release. Like in Nepal needing sugar, near Pashupatinath, the perfume of ecstasy and unanswered questions and remembered stories of the dead. Upon arrival of my words made flesh, of the tongue and as spear and separator of mauve tones and perloid deposits, of the ocean sands also gray and moist, and clams pulling themselves beneath the shallow surf, I arrive bearing my seal and namesake and stand ready, always ready, to the depth of my marrow, which no widow can contain. Baste the roasting brains in an oil made of me, and secreted from your glands shall be the bitter taste of glory and conquest, to stir your aethers to action, and vibrant shall be your nights. Hurrah, I say, you go your way and I go mine. Be like me and die, but live eternal by my side. Life.
15 shape, baboon, 0 Libra to 12 Libra. Knowledge, scribble, spies, gossip, word on the street, dusk. All the secrets come to me easily because I am not looking for them. I reside in the library. People come to me and I offer them memories on which they can rest their hearts. There's a lot of sad stories in the world. Cunning gray ghosts wander the shelves. Truth the mouth speaks, but no sound. Strange symbols adorn the walls in the quiet places, neither here or there. Yellow smiles like the stand of time. The blood flows, but something is at a standstill, like death just before death. Search and you will find. I can give you the perfect word, the song that makes your rhythm.
16th shape, cat, threshold, doors, cracks, moving unseen, architecture, alliances, cohesion. Robbery of a ceremony and of an oracle, the thin and raspy cry of sheer blue light in a crystal gas rush by the Navy Yard. The barges go in and out in the oily gray smoke and putrid fog. My angel on endless rampage, my vision in spheres bifurcated, yellow lobes of wet and precious light. My lyre lubricated, and the sounds of cackling angels diving below their depths to make a proud mockery of humankind and satirize human cleverness and ridicule with everlasting love human cunning. It is now. Give us the way, and no other look will surpass the single eye contact, the initial presence and proximity and heat and mingling of breath, a golden arrow and stone salute.
17 shape lion, 25 Libra to 8 Scorpio. Fraternity, scepters, rules, archons, protection. A nebula pulsating, a claw that unlocks a delicate door. I help you repel all influences and be a free agent. What stays secret must stay secret. In the lower office of a boat, under candlelight, I write my last wishes. No seas, no tempest can defeat me. I am beyond mortals. A hen holds a heart in chain. The chains are made of gold, and the binding is voluntary. Rise to the temple. The cards are visible. The table is bare. The fruits are consumed. There is nothing left but to bleed your life. Give it to the earth at midnight. Sanctify your joys back to where everything is. Forget the altar, forget the feast. Break from life in the armored splendor. Terror is the ultimate state.
18th shape, leopard, transmutation, tantra, ingesting poisons, heightened senses, nocturnal. Pandering within, wider than the cage, so emissions and emissaries beyond all may enwrap with all conceivable points, more than alive. The gardens we travel, the passages through night and day in a mixture, one within the other hidden, like fruit carved into the woodwork, with a secret scheme laid out by designers that knew centuries ago a photo would be taken within a place before we ever considered place as an idea. And within this photo, the secret fruit would be for the first time revealed, and all desires rest in the propulsion of ghosts' passage through the murky expanse of black heaven and the intelligence of distant nebula, the gas and incendiary cloud, and between meals our metabolism paused, the intelligence of the body, so many bacteria, and in the end a fall from perfection into the screaming gorgon of the mind, within the larger gorgon of physicality, hosting the endless agendas of the comedies of all worlds.
19 shape mouse, 21 Scorpio to 4 Sagittarius. Corruption, legion, foresight, taboo, plague. In the corner, things are leaking and rotting, carcasses vanishing under the dust and are replaced by flowering gray moldy growth. There is fear and flies gathering for the buffet. Things are ending and there is no stopping beyond this momentum. Curtains drop heavily while fires feed the wheels. Motion and decay gives the clock pulling power between past and future. There are no tables, no doors. This is the rotational decay. There are no solution for this motion, just motion itself.
20th shape, deer, 4 to 17 Sagittarius, hunting, tracking, bushcraft, sound, hedge, demarcation. Encantada and parks, balanced by real living thieves and no extraneous negation. You are alive as only a white drop of milk could decide, for a red spot collapsing into itself eternally beneath olive branch set aflame, discarding all worth to run and throw cutting patterns to the terraces and into the newsstands. Press release. A thin white stiff card of seashell braille worn in the brim of a hat. Ancestral poem encoded in the dust. Lunatic errand. No distance reply. Ears up and shatter. Force the hand of fate benign and die instantly for a rare cubic zirconium from France that has no soul, from a man that has no soul, in all black, receding back into the brick and sucked into the mortar pores, for he was never there.
21st shape, multiform, 17 Sagittarius to 0 Capricorn. Maximalist, triform, underground, guardian, geological, fossil fuel. I live in the minds of kings. I breastfeed the mountain peaks with my golden sap. Ancient worships now dissolve on common paper. I am full, pregnant with the world who can't exist without me. Break the path, crack the surface, and reveal the eternal dance. I live in the imagination of the child who loves me like the primal feeder. There's no such thing as unlucky. You make your way through the alleyway. Dark birds augur the time to act. You come through unharmed. What you thought was yours belonged to the way. No one understands this until it's too late. Watch your back. My tongue burns the uninitiated. Find the way and pay your dues to the passer.
22nd shape, Virgin, 0 Capricorn to 12 degrees Capricorn, enduring, stable, governance, centrality, pillars, hidden, egress, exit. There's no end and no beginning. Everything is completely sewn shut. The mercury seeps through, though. There's no estuary monitored by God himself. The all-seeing omnipotent is blind. The scope is too wide. The angels see, and to see is to harbor lust. All monks are frauds. The desireless state does not exist. From midnight till morning, all are tested, and you can hear their songs of ecstasy in a choir. I do not dispose fate to fury, like water just before it boils, before it changes its state. I am not here to remember, rememberer. the flash of sparkling strands above low-lit fields, and when stars press upon flesh, point life to life, the child chooses, and all people obey the whisperer, for no pure wish can be disposed, but Perseus's blood is on the hands of the altar, and snakeskin cascades from the northern skies, and Europa stands at the gate, and I recline in my sheepskin, coy and awaiting my turn, the inevitable, sex or death. My love, resurrect me.
Shape 23, torch, 12 to 25, Capricorn. Catabasis, passage, procession, illumination, necromancy, descent. Confluence of words from crypts, keys glowing red in ovens, sulfur smells, vowels, glowing orbs, the sun turned away. Looking through a mirror image, wondering, static glow. The relief of archaic statues and leaven once again. Tasting iron more than flesh. Gray and lifeless, the keys glowing red in the oven. Dark silk, blue, dark blue, almost black covers it all. The keys glow red.
The 24th shape, lightning, epiphany, enlivening occurrences, diagnosis, inner alchemy, progress, revelation. 25 Aquarius to 8, 25 Capricorn to 8 Aquarius. In the tempest pinnacle of night, shatters spirals and destroys the empire fragments, and all signal inside or outside the metallic fist floating in the abyss of space is lost, except for the single capacity to wish. And in an unconquerable eye, exposure to finality transitions to wisdom as perspective is lost. The face simply ceases to be a face, as everything else becomes a face, and for the final good of man's delight, the forgotten beatitude of God's filthy worm fry away the frocks of nuns, whose false flesh bruised purple with pleasure, and quake like howling childless rhymes, filling the alleyways with the aroma of copulation and the absence of sex. Horses' stables of futuristic technological components, where a thrust into Congress is the devil at his old best tricks.
25th shape, garland, 8 to 21, Aquarius. Arrested, tomb, immobility, locking, containing, exorcism, corralling. Riding the horse backward, denying passage, strong, pungent liquids across the halls. Everything is filtered through, though, the pearls and the garbage. Roses adorn the brow. Brass instruments intone the procession. It is beyond the point of putrefaction, unrecognizable. Clarity eventually comes through like filtered water, a pearl of wisdom amidst the clouds of rusted nails, offerings to the abyss. Perch above, laughing indistinctively, mimes on a wire, crows, white faces, laying down on fake satin pillows. Clouds of heavy dreams, chemical pools.
26 shape, Herald's Wand. 21 Aquarius to 4 Pisces. Emancipation, oasis, magic, fusion of duality, liberation, good omen, transformation, synthesis. Magnum opus of the sky light bend, solstice of sticks, impenetrable candle warper of nighttime arranger, engine oil guzzler. If I had a dime for every time. The world is coming apart. No skeleton in the death state. I believe in passage through filth, my magenta light reflecting off my costume, one dog or the other. Colorful mops. The cool morning statues, you already as time doesn't exist. Saturn is female. The cosmos is a hoax. On the other side, light bends. We revolve on smooth discs. Memory is king. Emotions are all. No sense in worshiping life as its only decay, an aging water slide, children delivered into cesspools, contagion, while our way is better, as clean as elves. The shaft of the arrow is the wanderer's staff, is the tree's branch, is the cocktail stirrer. One is the other. That is that, and that is this. I am you, and you are me when we need to be. My card shuffling hand, a woman crying on a beach, Isis. My curiosity to kill, Clarion. The crow comes to me and whispers, it's all everywhere. My God.
27th shape child. 4 to 17 Pisces. Rebirth, feasting, banqueting, abundance, nourishment. We each wait our turn to be released. The wheel turns, there are no favorites. Experience comes and goes. You wait in the darkness for your turn, and when the light arrives, you will forget your sorrows. The blood of the pure-hearted is good, but the blood of the divine child is better. Give me pilgrimage to the ancient land. Find the door, the path, the true gift of the wise, through the golden gate. Sacred order sometimes looks like chaos, wisdom and shoes. Sacrifices are small compared to the throne covered in jewels at the end of time. You wrap yourself in the sublime waiting. Jasmine and other fragrant white flowers will adorn the way. You must trade one thing for the secret. It is written, so it shall be.
28th shape, key. 17 degrees Pisces to 0 degrees Aries. Cohesion, closing and opening, portals, reconnection, anticipation, transition, mystery. Divide eternal child's eyes, the formed and the formless, the rotational and the unmanifest, unbound and unbindable to streets and strips and theaters and churches and domination, paralysis, possession. The feaster eats your soul, your face, and all that is left is your cold frame, repeatable, unique key, copied, duplicated, and from far away a pigeon cries, its polychrome neck tufts like oil and opal, like burning bismuth. An open door, a various opening, a cold parted by a steel wing, energy and inertia, reclining oracle-like upon Python's stump with one last great gift for the world, an orange, citrus blood, vampire warfare, cascades of coins and absinthe and cracking vials, leather gloves, mysterium, plentitude, the gruesome revelations at the gates. My father is the abominable two-headed god, but both faces belong to me, a thing of alien lust. To see me is to die insane. And that's it. Back to Ox.
Back to Ox.
Yeah.
Jay, I don't know if you're there. If you're there, hello. We can open the room for questions if there is any.
Yeah, definitely. That was really amazing. Oh my God.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Thank you.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. I think we'll just sort of give everyone a few minutes to compose their thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
for
then...
sure. Yeah, no problem. And if there's no questions, also fine. We can just have a chat, whatever.
Yeah. I'm like a little speechless right now. I was not expecting. I was like, what just happened? Oh my God. Sorry, give me 1 second.
Yeah, so I see one question here, so
yes.
I can start answering it.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
What's the relationship to editing the material we receive? So we actually don't edit the material we receive. We literally just pluck out, because we were doing channel writing consistently. We don't anymore so much in the this year, but 2019, 2020, 2021. Every night we did channel writing. So we actually have Google Docs filled with channel writing. And for this lecture in particular, we literally just like we just go under aux and we just chose sections. So we actually haven't edited the channel writing. How do we approach? Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think a lot of the channel writing is going to be in the book that we've been writing. It's like 3/4 of the way done, probably, hopefully out soon. And then everyone will get to see both the research in essay form and the channeled writing. And yeah, it's probably going to be, the channeled writing is probably going to be completely unedited, just like as it's streamed.
It's kind of entertaining in a lot of ways. Some things that come through. Nicholas asked, how do we approach dimensions for magic, talismanic, or otherwise? We've experimented with a lot of different things. I do personally think that the channel drawings that we did are, they're talismanic in a sense that we actually enter a trance state, a ritual space when we did the drawings. So we called Hecate. I don't know if you're familiar with what we've been doing, but we call Hecate and we call the animal. The moon is passing through dimensions, so the drawings themselves are kind of talismanic, but we experience also with reducing the shapes into more like Fu talismans, and we've used that. We've used different mentions for different purposes. So yeah, we do use them, but like we're both educated in just traditional talismanic magic from Picatrix and stuff, so we kind of like extend it further into like experimentation. And obviously, I don't know, Chris, if you want to say anything on that, like how we approach the mention for magic.
Yeah, I guess, we have like made normal Picatrix electional talismans like from the Picatrix, and we've also used our own kind of material, the stuff that we've channeled with Picatrix style elections. But then we also, like LD's saying, we reduce them into almost like Fu, or like kind of just like sigil form, character form, and then we'll make those, and we often put those in the direction that corresponds to the mansion. If you start with 0 being east, and then the eighth, the 8th being south, and then the 22nd or the 15th being west, and the 22nd being south, and then you have the whole thing. That's how in Feng Shui, how the mansions would be arranged around the Feng Shui compass. And then we take our Fu talismans, say if it were Herald's Wand, and we want to break loose of some sort of binding, we can make a Herald's Wand Fu, call Herald's Wand the way we do, get a channeled Fu shape, and then we both have our own personal ritual practices, so that varies at that point, but then we can charge those up installed into the directionality that it corresponds to when the moon is in that mansion, and then recharge it back.
Yeah, and also I guess what we've noticed, personally, I'm like that with just as a practicing astrologer using magic, but also with dimension. I think like everybody's compelled to different places in the zodiac, so you're going to be engaging with, like, I'm going to be engaged with certain mention more than others. I noticed that when leopard shape comes through, which is like the middle of Scorpio, I can't remember the degree now, or the lunar mention, which number is it, but I noticed over time, just because of my notes, that I was getting drunk every time the moon passes there. I was getting drunk, but I only noticed that because I was taking notes. So there's actually something about observing kind of like, and noting what you do and how you feel and the daily occurrence depending on where the moon is, because it's really going to inform you on your own sort of cyclical patterns. And I just realized, because I was always hungover and never writing my notes the next day of the mention for leopard, and I realized, oh my God, like leopard mention, which is also associated with the liver, and more extensively Scorpio degrees, which is ruled by Mars, also associated with the liver. So there's this whole kind of like undercurrent of liver stuff in leopard mention. So yeah, in terms, and I have a bit of a different approach to magic in a sense that I just think existing when you're involved with magic, like everything you do becomes intentional. So then you're kind of constantly enchanting your existence also. Not that I don't, like, I do have ritual practices also, and I engage like directly with certain things, but I do also think that the difference between just like being a magical practitioner and just being a regular person is just the awareness that you place on every of your action, on your existence, on your breath, on your intention.
Yeah, we're definitely more sort of mystics than we are sorcerers, you know, like we can perform magic, but this whole trip for us is like a kind of is a kind of revival into the mysteries and trying to gain revelation of what these shapes are and what reality is composed of. So a lot of the magic that we do is just to find out more about the shapes, you know,
and about reality too.
About reality, yeah, exactly. Another way that I do use them magically is like if I'm doing any spirit invocation from, say, the Grimoire Verum, which we use as one of our comparative materials, instead of going through all of the protocols to like make a circle and do all the traditional things, I'll receive the channeled image and then I'll meet the spirit in that image. And so you kind of do it as like a visionary practice, more so than needing. I think I might have talked about that in AstroMagia last year too, but that's one way that it can interface magically, that you create a space for these things to take place in by viewing the mansion itself.
There's like there's another question I want to talk about a bit.
The funny mansion.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like he goes.
Yeah, he goes hilarious.
Jay, can you mute yourself because I can hear myself talking? Thank you. Yeah, so he goat, which falls in like late degree Virgo. I don't know if you want to put the we don't have the degree list of all of the, anyways.
He goat's 14. That's the 14 shape.
He goat is like just like it's like a horny goat, and it's just crazy the stuff that comes through. And then also just noticing when the moon passes there, how much people are more horny, they're more out there, they're just like putting themselves out there, like just like it's very just libidinal. So I think that's like one of the ones that really stands out when the moon passes there. And in the traditional sort of Arabic material, they speak also of just like this place being good for like sex.
But it's like productive too. So it's like that.
Yeah, it's productive.
Kind of that nervousness around you know, when there someone's in a class in high school and a kid won't stop tapping, and then the teacher's like, oh, like you might have like out of control hormones, like it's that sexual energy that causes you to just kind of like nervously fidget, is definitely 14 Higo shape stuff, where it's just like, it's, you know, the piercing and puncturing and penetrating of construction, as well as procreation.
And then I guess funny, not funny, but like very kind of blatant also is garland. Garland shape, which is what's the number of garland? It sits in Aquarius. Like Saturn was there basically during the whole lockdown, and garland, what we've come to realize is like the funerary garland on tombs, probably from that list that you put on like coffins and stuff. There's something really arrested and locked in about the place. We both had experience through the years with it where we were just like stuck. And I guess everybody's seen how, you know, Saturn passing through Garland mentioned, like we've had like these lockdowns as Saturn passed through Garland. So it's not funny, but it's another one that's like very kind of just
it's really blatant,
very obvious. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Harold's wand coming after is what releases you from Garland. So a real Garland experience will lock you up, and then a Herald wand experience will let you back out. But when you look through the Chinese material, the Indian material, the Arabic material, for that shape, it all speaks of various kinds of containing and corralling and encircling. Like the Greek word they use that gets translated as garland or wreath or crown, etymologically actually originally meant just to encircle. And so it makes sense that like across traditions, this mansion will talk about putting your jewels in a vault, putting a fence around your livestock, putting a protective fence around what you're growing. So it's caging things up for a variety of reasons. One of them being, people like dangerous people needing to be thrown in a dungeon. But the experience you might have if you get garlanded is you get locked up. So we've had some funny / miserable garland experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I don't know if we should just talk about it or not, but there's another question here.
Yeah.
From Nicholas. Have you discerned any phenomenological logic behind the meanings of the mention in the same way that the changes in solar light inform the meaning of the zodiac? Well, yes, fundamentally, because I do think it's kind of like speaks of like pre-birth kind of, and then kind of earth experiences, conception, like copulation, and death, and the kind of static places between life and death, and then the transition. So to a certain extent, I think they compare the tropical zodiac a lot of time to that, but it's more subtle than that. And also there's more, it's not like defined cusp, like it seems like the meaning kind of melt from one mention to the other. So sometimes, wolf and dog mention and serpent mention, which is close to the summer solstice, 0 Cancer. These 3 mention, there's a lot of like abundance and kind of like jewel and fountain, and it seems to be a place of like that's kind of brings forth like abundance. But sometimes it's going to be more in wolf, sometimes it's going to be more in dog, like. And I think that could depend also on the longer cycle of the moon, like how full she is when she passes there, because that's another consideration that we haven't even really noted. We noted a little bit, but every time the moon passes through, she's not necessarily in the same light amount. So there's that, but there's also the eclipses that happen with the moon, and that was like a huge sort of thing that came through, and that was our lecture last year with AstroMagia. So in terms of I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if Chris.
I think like, ultimately that's the bottom line, is the phenomenological, like solstitial equinoctial logic and the seasonality throughout the year. Like I said in the beginning, like every 28 days the moon remembers what the sun does every 365 days. And so you can see it really clearly in the Chinese material. Although the Chinese material is really confusing, it seems to have gotten somewhat disorganized for a variety of reasons throughout a variety of time periods. So you have to kind of compare it to the other materials for it to be like, oh, there it is. It pops out once you line it up. But what they're describing is kind of what LD and I do on the forecast episodes is this: they're naming each mansion as a season of the year, because that's the stars that would be visible during that time. So it's the opposite end of where the sun is in the zodiac, and the lunations that occur at that time, one at the end where the sun is, one at the other end. And that frames a season that they then use the name of the mansion to mark as like that's in the Chinese sense, it's almost the 28 seasons of the year, the micro seasons. But then that, like I said, every month the moon re-references every one of those seasons, and the memory of that content comes through our daily experience, because the moon's in a one mansion for for about a day. During that day, that content is remembered subconsciously, and we kind of it lights up those kinds of things. Like if you pay attention to, like, we write dailies every day, and so we're always writing them predictively, and then you kind of go through the day, and the day the moon is in Falcon, really Falcon like things will happen. Like last time the moon is in Falcon, which can have to do with like apotropaic charms, and like warding away disaster. Like it references algol and this part of late Taurus that has to do with the history of kind of like the evil eye, and then that seasonality of that year where like the crops are growing but they could get damaged and people are worried about it, etc. And so there's this like last time that was the moon is in Falcon, I had like an apotropaic charm on my necklace that I lost, and I spent the rest of the day just searching all over the grass and the ground where I was for it. And Elodie had like tried to remote view where it was, and we did a horary to find it. And so it's like an apotropaic in Falcon has a lot to do with sight too. So I was literally like hovering above the ground looking for this apotropaic charm. And as we were doing it, like a vulture swooped down, or kind of a turkey hawk, and someone that was around was like, oh, look, a falcon. And they had no idea. And it was, and then a band played the night before. I was DJing a show, and the band was called the White Falcons. And so it's just like any other astrological archetypal thing aggregates, all of like Jupiter things happen on Jupiter day. This is also happening with the mansions, but ultimately it's like the kind of seasonality of and the phenomenon of that part of the year redistributed into like each day of the month. Sorry, kind of a rant, but hopefully that makes sense.
So Keith said, I like the way you spelled 24 lightning to incorporate more than one meaning, but was that intentional? I'm not sure.
Not intentional. Mistake.
Then what effect, if any, does lunar phase have for you in a mention?
I think the most emphasized are the new moon and the full moon, as you were saying.
Eclipses.
And the eclipses, yeah. But yeah, as far as like in everything we've done, the mansions just still seem to do their thing, no matter what the phase of the moon is. If you were trying to do magic and harvest that, obviously those rules would probably apply. But it seems more of like it's a sequential emphasization mechanism of the cycles of full, new, and eclipse, kind of just like punctuates certain mansions.
I don't know if that answers, but I guess. When working with dimensions, do you stick to when the moon is passing through the exact degree, or more today the moon is in Ox? Well, you know, like right now the moon is in Ox until it exits 12 degrees Aries. So that gives us a pretty big window of when the moon will be in this mention. So usually we just, yeah, we like the writing that we do daily writing now, also not channel, but just like intentional on Instagram. We just publish just to go through the practice. And so we usually write it when the moon is in Ox, which is a pretty big window.
Yeah, when we do the channel writing, we usually do it at night because it's the moon's time. But sometimes we have to do 2 in a day because the mansion will switch in the middle of the day.
But yeah, it's not like, let's say you're creating a talisman or something, like, and you have to be extremely precise with the rising and, you know, the planet rising and the moon aspecting and all that. In terms of the lunar mention, personally, I think we're just more like the moon is an Ox right now.
And there's an elasticity to it because it seems to, instead of having exact boundaries, like this stratified mathematical shape, it's the moon elastically and just phasing from shape to shape as it goes around, like just kind of like it's more of a subjective phasing change state, like a shape shifting, like ox becoming vulture, vulture becoming bull, etc.
And
So
sometimes there's kind of like, yeah, back and forth a little bit more. Yeah, it's very elastic. I really like this question. Anything more about reality via dimension you can reveal?
Oh man, yeah, like
well,
so much. Yeah.
Yeah, so much. But one of my favorite things personally, because I'm a dreamer, when I started to engage with this material, I just started noticing how much everybody in my dreams were people that had important placement where the moon was currently transiting. So it's almost like a direct telephone line. And I think you might have seen previous lecture on dream and stuff. But for me, that was the biggest thing. It was almost like we're constantly all communicating, but the moon in certain mention kind of like acts as a direct kind of line to a variety of things. And so it just kind of becomes easy to have conversation with that part of the sky and the people that are from that part of the sky. And that's really, really dynamic. And at this point, I don't even have to pay attention really, like it all happens more just kind of subliminally because I've just been repeatedly kind of exercising, so developing like a muscle. So
yeah, totally. Yeah, when we were doing a dream group for a while where we were recording multiple people's dreams and meeting to go over it and seeing what everyone dreamt when the moon was in which shape. And we would see that people would often all dream of the same kind of content, like when the moon was in this shape versus that shape. But yeah, I mean, the mansions key into so much to do with reality, as I was saying, like this is the world we live in of light and darkness. The moon goes around the ecliptic every 28 days. These are the things we're rooted into. And there seems to be, like I was saying, like holistic integration. There's suggestion of what organs and what meridians from the Chinese material. You can see that reverberate in really strange ways in the Egyptian material, like from 15 baboon seems to be more about like civilization than like versus the creation of reality, and then that also turning into the preparation for death and like mummification practices and embalming practices. And it's interesting that along that stretch of mansions you find, like as LD was saying with leopard and the liver, you find certain organs highlighted in another logical sense than the Chinese, in a more Egyptian sense. But then you see that the same things sort of do pop up in Chinese, maybe like slightly moved over. But yeah, so the mansions have content to do with our bodies, they have content to do with like seasonal functions. Also, they seem to link in to divisions of other layers of reality. That's something we've been looking at recently with the Indian tradition and the 7 lokas, or the 7 worlds, and how those reflect out from the organization of the mansions. Or as we said before, directionality seems to be a big one. Like I'll even see, like there was a night where there was an eclipse in a certain mansion, and I was people were all pointing to this part of the sky. You couldn't see the eclipse, but there was just crazy clouds in this part of the sky, and they were like, oh my god, look at those clouds, I've never seen anything like it. And they didn't know, but I knew an eclipse was happening that day, and it was in the directionality that would have corresponded to that mansion. There was like a collection of visual phenomenon in that area. Yeah, there's lots of things that we could go on and on and on about like
I guess,
further
yeah,
considerations.
I guess one simple thing to keep in mind, and that, you know, because when we learn things with astrology and astrological magic and magical practices and stuff, and a lot of the term armchair practitioner comes into the equation because we feel like there's always something to learn. One thing that is kind of fundamental that for me was just kind of a confirmation is that we have access to all of the knowledge within ourselves and within our experience in an intuitive way. And you know, sometimes reading, like reading in books, obviously, you know, it's great, and I absolutely am for like
Yeah, literacy.
education and all that. Yeah, no, and I think it's important to have a good base, especially with astrology and astrological magic and stuff, so you know, but also trusting your experience, and also actually just being receptive to what is kind of being communicated, because there is actually knowledge accessible in other ways. And that's one thing. It's like the cycle of the moon is kind of like a mnemonic device. So the memories, it's just like circular, and everything just gets accumulated there. So it's all there, it all resides there at all time. And it gets magnified when the moon passes there, and you can kind of converse and communicate with that space in the way you want. Like we've done this in this way because this is the way we are. I don't think that this format necessarily applies to everybody or should be used by everybody like through the same way. I think like we all have different modes of tapping into our intuition and our emotional body and information and all of that. But just, yeah, like, how can I say? The internet is just a reflection of the interconnectedness and the knowledge that is already available, you know? I guess that would be like my way of explaining that. So that's one thing I think to keep in mind, is that this is not inaccessible. It's actually very accessible, because it's the reality of the human experience of being embodied, of existing.
Yeah, it's really the baseline. I mean, it is sort of the baseline. Like if you just kind of forget everything and you're like, yeah, the moon's just like the moon and the sun are doing their thing, and you're completely affected by it before any of the other planets are taken into consideration. So what we sort of did with this work over the past few years is just pay extreme attention to what the moon was doing every day, and so much insight gets pulled out of it. One thing that I did think later about the effect of lunar phase, I don't know if this is speaking to effect, but an interesting consideration is for like a whole half of the year, one mansion or another is going to be waxing, or the moon will be waxing when it's there, or it'll be waning when it's there. So if you're doing magic with the mansions, for instance, like if you're going to do something with a Grimorium Verum spirit that resides in, say, she-goat, then there's a whole period of the year where what you're going to want to talk to them about has more to do with clearing the way for you to get what you want, rather than them accumulating things for what you want. And so there's sort of like each mansion almost has like a season where it's accumulating or where it's releasing in a way, kind of probably like yin and yang kind of dynamics.
I think that we're pretty much done. I'm not sure. I think Jay just left us.
Oh, is he gone?
Oh no, I'm still here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you're there. I
No,
can't see
I've been
anybody.
listening. No. I
guess there's
here.
like
Just been
4
listening.
minutes left. So, yeah, I don't know if anybody else have any question, but thank you for those of you who were here, and thank you for your question, and thank you for your open participation, I guess, with our performance.
Yeah, and if you want to hear more, witness our process in action, sign up for our mailing list and check out our forecast episodes, because you can see how we're always talking about all the various traditions and meshing all of the what's said about each place, each shape together, and pulling all of that comparative material into synthesis. Oh yeah, and yeah, stoked for the book. Yeah, me too. Coming really soon. I'm nearing the end and trying to get that out there. Thank you.
I have a quick question, but I don't know if
Yeah.
we would have enough time to fully get into it. But you've mentioned that you guys have been working with the Grimorium Vera as part of this process, and that you've like worked with the talismans that you've drawn and kind of done this own ritual structure to contact the spirits in the grimoire. What has the kind of manifestation degrees been like in that process? Is it more kind of internal, or because in some of the descriptions of the grimoires, you would have these very visceral external experiences with the conjured spirits. And so I was curious what that was like in these old methods.
I was already doing working with the Grimorium Verum before I started, like through Jake's Geosophia, being like, oh, okay, like this might link up to the mansions, and that's what set up my whole investigation. And I'm very satisfied that seems to be the case. And comparing what each spirit does to what the Chinese material says or what the Indian material says, it's like dead ringer. You're like, oh yeah, these spirits are definitely the spirits of the ecliptic in a 28 schema. But so I, like, outside of what Elodie and I do, I already had like an experience of the Verum that was just like kind of from my ritual practice, and it's kind of morphed over time with this work into just seeing the spirits as the sort of just the CB handle or sort of like Twitter handle name for each mansion. Like it's just someone that lives in the mansion that you can talk to.
Someone or something.
Yeah, someone or something.
But in terms of like effect, I think there's definitely external things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it really overlaps completely with the nature of the mansion itself. Like what, yeah, like the Clisthert from Leopard says to rule over night and day. And then you look at the traditional material talking of the mansions, and it says the same thing. And the like Egyptian mythology like points to the same thing in that place in a really like direct and profound kind of layered way. And you're like, okay, so the spirit literally just kind of resides in that part of the sky. But yeah, so the mansions and the spirits have almost like exactly the same level of effect. It's just if the spirits allow you to ask directly for effect it's like you call on the phone and order the effect, you know.
Yeah, and I do think also, like, just briefly, what you see through the names that you see in grimoires and stuff are just one filtered experience. So
yeah, totally.
By engaging constantly and kind of really getting into the material, you start to develop kind of your own conversations, I guess, which is which as an astrologer personally was my main interest, and that's why I joined Chris with this project, is because I wanted to experience each mention personally as an astrologer, so I know, instead of just relying on a few lines, you know, that's been compiled over centuries from other astrologer or other people with different agendas. As an astrologer practitioner, it's also our role to just know what we're engaging with, as opposed to just relying on all textual evidence. So
yeah, because like the mentions are happening, they're operating right now, you know. So like what everything that every tradition and every time period says about the mansions is, for us, it's just intel on like what the expressions of all the 28 are and were over a wide swath of time and place and people. Like the tradition itself flowed around, like, for, you know, like in physicality, and so everyone was experiencing it, and so everything that everyone has said about it is valid and comparable to your own experience.
I think that's all I have to say.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow,
Well,
thank you guys.
Thanks to everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, that was really amazing and poignant. I felt called to give like a little bit of like burnt offerings while you guys were reading through
Oh, cool.
the list.
Perfect.
And
yeah.
is smoked so intensely I had to like put it outside. Like it got really out of hand. I was like, I can't set off the condo, like, oh no, the condo fire alarms. I have to leave it
The
outside.
moon, well,
So-
the moon in like Ox Mansion with Jupiter, you know, and
Totally.
Mhm.
and when I was
Mhm.
reading through it, it was like, and that's where the moon is right now. But it's the last phrase of the channel writing I selected was "things are catching fire."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Like from the Grimorium Verum perspective, like that's where Lucifer would be, and the idea being that it's the mansion that it's the spirit that compels all the other spirits to do stuff. So it's like the first mansion is the like being ox, you know, being about initiation and getting things started, being vernal equinox. It is like it can be yeah, it can incendiary in that sense, but today it's like ox with the moon on Jupiter, so it's even more expanding your burnt offering out of control, you know.
Yeah.
It's I just the more you talk, the more questions I start having, and it's because you're yeah.
That's what happened to us.
Yeah, that's why we're stuck like this. This is all we talk
because
about.
in the Grimoire Varium, right, like you have like the Trinity, you have the three sort of chiefs essentially, right, like Lucifer, Astaroth, and Beelzebub, and you're saying that they then correspond to the individual mansions of the moon, and it's very cool. It's very
In a
cool.
variety
I
of ways,
have like I built a diagram with the three, like, you know, the Beelzebub and Astaroth and Lucifer with the lower spirit and the association with the mention. So we actually have like a visual.
that's in the AstroMagia lecture from last year. I think you can see that. But think about it seems to correspond pretty directly to the division in the Chinese cosmology of heaven, earth, and man, and the three worlds. You see that there's a lot of stuff when you start going through the Taoist and especially pre-Taoist shamanic material. And if you filter out the Confucianism and filter out the Buddhism, you can see pretty clearly like Lucifer, Beelzebub, and Astaroth's presence as divided into that trinity. And yeah, and of course, and you can see it all in the Indian material too. And like, yeah, but there's the 3s and the 4s and the 7s and the 28s and the 19s and the 18s, and it's all there in what the mansions do, and it's all there in all of these other traditions as well.
Wow. I am just looking through my list to find the socials for you guys for social media, and I'll post them in the comments real quick for everyone, so they can take.
We also have it at the second slide, Chris, if you want to.
Oh, brilliant! Yes,
slide.
please.
Yeah, hold on. Yeah, this our shared handle is at 28 shapes on Instagram, where we forecast daily from a lunar zodiacal perspective.
And then yeah, we have lunarzodiac.com. Very easy. I can't believe the name wasn't used, but it was not.
Yeah.
So lunarzodiac.com, and from there we have 2 lectures available on our website. And
yeah, and that's where you sign up for the mailing list to get our monthly forecasts in video form. And we're also working on putting a calculator on there with a reference guide. So there'll be like a live calculator of the moon going through coming up.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, how are you guys feeling? Do you want to like talk a bit more, or do you feel like
no, I think that's
close at this point?
We were told an hour and a half, so I think we've.
Oh, I was told to give presenters like a 15-minute grace period. That they can go over 15 minutes if they wanted to. Yeah.
I mean, if anyone has like a burning question, but otherwise we can all say goodnight.
Well, I have more burning questions, but I don't know if it's appropriate. I don't know if you guys want to go over with me.
There's nothing appropriate in the space.
Yeah, like, let her rip.
because you guys were also mentioning Hecate as part of the devotional practice, and how, you know, sort of as you began observing the mentions, all of these synchronicities began arriving in your life. And I was just curious, did they sort of intensify as time progressed? And the more you worked with the mansions, it seemed like the more the energies were entrenched. And if there were any sort of standout synchronicities that kind of really like pulled you into this investigation process on a deeper level.
Yes,
Oh,
so
yeah.
many.
So many.
Yeah, like infinite amount. That's why it's so exciting. But like, just like a very blatant example, you know, the dog drawings that we were doing for many years. One of the first dog drawing I ever done was just like a black head of a dog with green eyes. And then, you know, I had like a German Shepherd and a small dog for many years. And then they passed away last year from old age. And then I didn't have a dog for a year. And then I got a new dog who's black. And at night, I was walking with my flashlight around my house for him to pee. And he turned around and I was taking pictures of him, and he's exactly like this. But I had done this drawing 2 years prior, and I have the exact same picture of this drawing that happened 2 years later. And when I realized that this dog probably came through just from my practice with Hecate and with the moon, because he's literally a dog that looks like Anubis. He's just like a black dog with big pointed ears. And I just got him randomly this year in May. And he's a sun in Libra and moon in Taurus like me. There was like all of these really crazy synchronicities. I was like, yeah, okay, I guess at some point when you just call the moon all the time, like she brings you a black dog. Like.
Yeah. Yeah. And right after Elodie's dog passed away, I ended up getting a dog randomly. A friend of a friend of a friend's mom like needed a home for a dog, and it ended up being looking just like a white wolf. And I was going to New York City to be on Mickey Pellerano's show, Time Lord TV, and Elodie was on streaming, but I went there in person, and I saw the listing for this dog and through Instagram, and I was like, hey, where are you located? I'm interested. And they were like, oh, I'm in Long Island. And I was like, okay, well, I'll be in New York tomorrow. Coincidentally, I'll come check it out. And I asked Mickey if I could bring a dog to the recording, and I was talking about the dog I already had, and he was like, oh yeah, totally. He's like, you have a big white wolf, right? And I was like, no, I don't, but I'm going to look at a big white wolf tomorrow morning. And he was like, I swear I've seen pictures of you with this big white wolf. And I just started seeing like there was wolves howling outside of the place I was staying. There was like huge posters of white wolves. There was just everything started coming up of white wolves. And I went to check out the dog that morning before I was on Mickey's show, and when we were talking about the 28 shapes, and the house number that the dog was at 28, and it was like at this like three-way crossroads, you know. And I was like, okay, I guess this is how it goes, you know. So we definitely had a lot of dog activity. And the night we met in person, we've told this story before, but we were both speaking at a conference in Halifax, and we ended up staying at a place that was like on a three-way crossroads, like on a new moon in Libra, that like hit both of our charts, and just sort of like everything just like went Hecatean, you know, like
it was. We both had practice with Hecate before. It's almost like we were compelled, you know, and we have been compelled. So obviously, it's kind of like a dedication, because it's not necessarily always our like our. It was almost like we had to show up for the work or something. One other thing I guess I wanted to mention that kind of came through, and that was a little bit problematic at times, is that doing trance work and calling in the animal, we started to realize that we were remote viewing. And so we were remote viewing obviously, because when you're using kind of like the vision aspect, you know, you kind of go into a dream symbolic state, and the information that comes through is all it's all kind of symbolic, more so kind of like a dream state, which is also what remote viewing does. So at some point we had to actually separate, like, are we remote viewing? Are we actually seeing the place of like the shape dimension that we want to explore? You know, so there was like on a sort of more visionary level, we had to actually sort that out. It's not just like, oh, we get plugged in and we get a vision. Like we had to sort out, like, what is it that we're actually seeing? Are we, you know?
We actually had to get trained in remote viewing to make sure that we weren't remote viewing. Like we took Lynn Buchanan's course to figure out like how to reduce displacement so that we could make sure that we were getting the clearest transvision of the mansion, rather than just like, because we were comparing material every day. We'd do the sessions at night, and then we'd show each other the drawing and the writing, and then we'd talk about it every day after. So was I tapped into the mansion, or did I remote view the picture that Elodie is going to show me tomorrow? You know?
Yeah, because our drawings were so similar, like our drawings, and we were just like, what? Like we used the same colors, same forms. So we were just like, okay, are we seeing the shape, or are we remote viewing each other's drawing? We need to like kind of separate that.
Yeah. So we got some skills with remote viewing, and then we're able to like make sure that we're doing the right thing. And it's Lynn Buchanan. Yeah. We really had to refine when we talk about doing trance work, we've had to really refine our process. Like we couldn't just be like, oh yeah, and whatever comes through. We had to think a lot and train ourselves a lot to have like accurate visions, and be able to know how to separate the layers of like get more signal than noise. You know, we were really intentional about that.
Wow. Yo Hecate.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Very much,
Wow. And like remote viewing itself is like such a lunar oriented activity, I feel like a lot of times, and just trance in general. And it's really beautiful the way you describe how all of it just kind of ties together. And I just love that kind of Hecatean presence that kind of is just like permeating through all of it in this like way that just feels very her, where she kind of likes to observe in the background sometimes and just kind of sneaks everything in.
The first time I ever made offering to her was like in 2016. I had taken Jason Miller's like classes, you know, and I made an offering at the crossroad. First of all, in the course, it was like, keep the offering in your house and then go make the offering at a three-way crossroad. And that's when I realized that I live in the woods, but I realized I lived at a three-way crossroad. I was like, okay.
Wow.
So then I made the offerings, and the next day there's 3 Newfoundland ponies that showed up at the crossroad, and I was like, oh my God, what am I getting into? But then eventually that's how me and Chris came to meet. It was under this practice, you know, so this came through from like initially having practices with her.
Like you're talking about Jason Miller's Sorcery of Hecate course?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and as far as synchronicities, like there's just way more than we could possibly detail. Like they're literally every day, like multiple every day, because we track them. Like it's one of the things in our field notes, like thing that we fill out. And so we really pay a lot of attention to these synchronicity chains and watch them morph over time. And then when they come back around, we can be like, oh yeah, that thing is back. Remember that? And we can look back in the notes like 2 years ago and be like, oh yeah, that happened on this mansion. And then check it out now and be like, oh, that's where it threads to, or it's threading somewhere else. And we can kind of be like, why? And then look at it sequentially, look at like the different ways in which the mansions interrelate, like through various traditions, and be like, oh, I think this is what's speaking. But sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's literally just, or not nothing, but just kind of, like nature doing its thing. Like the Chinese would say, like in dream, not all your dreams are meaningful. They're the images in dream are sometimes like just the condition of your organs just speaking themselves into imagery, you know? And so we'll get a lot of that with synchronicity chains too. But what was I going to say about I can't remember. Anyway, carry on. I'll remember later.
But
yeah, and also
yeah,
like,
it's just
oh yeah, I remember it. It's the remote viewing, like when you were saying it's very Hecatean and very lunar. You know, like the old heads, the old guard of remote viewing, it's like, what does it mean like for cosmic consciousness or in quantum reality? And I think it's just like dogs remote view when they're just like looking in the distance and sniffing, or like animals are all remote viewing for food or for mating or for habitat or for whatever reason. And we just kind of got out of the habit of as humans of thinking that that's like an integrated part of the human experience. So I think it's like remote viewing and the mansions really do kind of go hand in hand.
My mind is still swimming at when Elodie was saying, when you were saying that you gave that offering and then like three ponies showed up. Just like horses and Hecate. I'm like, what is happening? Oh my God.
I have picture. If you're on Instagram, I have a private account, but I can send you. It's crazy. It was crazy because it's like I live in the middle of nowhere. Like that, those horse ran away from somewhere and showed up at the crossroads. But that's not it. Like when I met Chris, that offering me starting was in 2016, but I met Chris in 2019 in Halifax, and that fall I came back home and it was very spirited, and 5 horses showed up at my house, not ponies, horses.
Wow.
One giant male with females, and they were just like coming to my door, and I was like, this is just very spirited. But
wow.
I think like I said, it was like it was more like we were more compelled, we were more called, so it's not, it's almost like not a personal choice. It's, it's like kind of beyond, it's beyond
and we've stayed in it ever since. Like we weave through it every day, and so we're just kind of, it's a definite, like, not even just like a devotional practice, it's just like a full-on lifestyle. But I think part of like what our like our work is pointing out is that there's, not like everyone on earth should do this and act like us and be into what we're into. Like obviously that's insane, but living in it as a lifestyle rather than just seeing it as like a magical device puts you into a state that is probably existed in some sense back into like Neolithic times and before that. Like this is like like people were experiencing this cycle, and so we've just been trying to embed it in us.
And one small anecdote, like one time, I guess I can't remember which mention, I'm pretty sure it was Garland, but I'm not sure. So we're trying to decipher every day when we meet and exchange our notes from our ritual practice every night. So we meet in the morning, exchange the channel writing, exchange the drawing, and we try to decipher what's coming through this channel writing. And there was like mention of Chernobyl. So I was like, Chernobyl. I checked the date, and the moon was actually in the mention of that we were like investigating. So I'm pretty sure it's Garland, but
it was Garland. I remember.
It was in Garland mention when the incident in Chernobyl happened, and that came through the channel writing. So it's like it's all this information coming through about that space,
Yeah, it's like like Elodie was saying, it's a mnemonic device, and that goes as far as like it's the world's memory. Like on Garland Mansion, where the moon was in Garland Mansion when Chernobyl happened, it's one of the things that's going through all of our subconscious at that time, because it's going through the memory bank of the world at that time. We could maybe call the 28 shapes like the 28 memory banks of the world. Like and that's what I was trying to say in the beginning. I was like, more occurrences keep happening, our awareness of reality is complexifying, but there's forgetting too. We don't remember what happened like prior to Göbekli Tepe or like Catalhoyuk, like what people were up to at that time is largely like, we don't know, like other than some like motion, some pottery people, some like evidence. But this seems to be a way that we can get at least as a high fidelity memory. It's like LD was saying, it's sort of like using the like the memory muscle extended into like the world memory muscle.
Yeah, it's interesting. So because like like it came into my mind, like the moon remembers, like she's such
the
a
moon
powerful
remembers,
witness.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And because she's so close and we experience it so close, it's like whatever space between under the lunar, like the sublunar realm, whatever space here is just like everything is so saturated with it.
Yeah, totally. Like I often say that like when you're like trying to tap into planetary magic, and like it's Tuesday, it's Mars's day, and it's Mars's hour, and you do a Mars thing, then you see everywhere, it's sort of like a radio transmitter is just lighting up all the Mars stuff everywhere, and it's like ping ping ping, and there's this distribution of Mars stuff that just sort of like shows itself. With the mansions, it's more like as we're in Ox, as we're in Vulture, as we're in Bull, our entire reality is just submerged in an Ox bath, submerged in a Vulture bath, because we're in the sublunar realm,
But I mean, the animal shape, like that's what we use as an entry point, just because it was the prayer to Mene, and we were investigating this prayer and this list. But as you enter through the animal, it's not necessarily the animal. I mean, this is just the schema of that time from Greco-Egyptian. And it explains through their own system and cultural values. You see torch and lightning and garland, heralds wand and child and key, which is all a lot of the Greco-Egyptian sort of protocols for death and mummification and all that.
Wow.
So, but you can find these parallel in the other 28 system too.
Which the book is going into in detail, like how all the comparison happens. So when that comes out, there's like a whole discussion of it's thinking of it more as like, instead of Ox, Vulture, Bull, like just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 28. And then that opens the conversation to what each culture and what each time period thought about what a first mansion is, what a 7th mansion is, what a 28th mansion is. And similarly, we've been talking about that with the tropical zodiac, like instead of labeling it by asterism. Yeah, we talked about that at the beginning, sort of like the 12 spokes of the sky, like from the Babylonian period of just saying like the 12 spokes of the wheel of the sky. So there's just tropical portion 1, tropical portion 2. The first mansion always starts at the first degree of tropical portion 1, and the 28th mansion ends at the end of tropical portion 12. And just sort of like that allows us to look at what everyone said about those spaces and those divisions, which are just hardwired into reality,
I'm rereading the prayer to mean, and it's interesting because I don't know if you guys have, and we're over time already, but I really want to ask this, and then we can close, I guess, and hopefully JD won't be too mad with me. Because this prayer, I don't know if you guys have seen another PGM ritual that's almost like the solar parallel to it, and it's meant to be spoken at sunset. It's called the consecration for all purposes. And it goes through a similar set of forms related to the sun. It's really curious to think about how that may be connected.
This is the one place where the 28 are listed, but the fact that there's 28 shapes is listed in many places throughout the PGM, and it always says the same thing, that basically it starts with like Ao, breath, light, the 7 frequencies, the 28 forms, then distributing into everything else, like into the rest of the holistic division. But yeah, the 28ism is mentioned all over the place, And like you said, from different perspectives, like be like, oh yeah, we're going to take, this is a solar working, so we're going to look at it like this, but this is the one place in the whole text where it actually just lists the 28, but you see them mentioned elsewhere, like as single, like, well, it'll talk about wolf, or you'll see it talk about scarab falcon, and it'll talk about mini sequences, like it's talking about times of year or certain deities or whatever.
Yeah, like wolf, put your wolf, which one is like put your wolf skin on, so you know that it's actually, you know, the summer
solstice
in one of the PGM.
Yeah, it's like, it's a right to Apollo.
Yeah, right to Apollo, yeah.
For the consecration for all purposes, just to clarify, it's actually 12, and it's corresponding to each of the hours of the day, and it kind of you say it at sunset, and it kind of pulls everything through, but it's animal shapes that are listed as well. That's really, and this kind of transformative quality.
That's important that you brought that up, because it's those 12, it's the PGM's concern with hours, the 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, which shows that they're thinking about a cycle of solstice and equinox, that it's not it's not exclusively asterism pinned. There's a tendency within magic to like just like be too hardcore about like that the mansions are stellar. It's almost like people are doing stellar magic and calling it the mansions, you know. There's obviously a relationship, but you can see in the PGM, if they're talking about hours, about 12 hours, and you have to do this at whatever hour of day, that it's like planetary hours. You would need to know the length of light and the length of night, like at any time of year. So they're obviously paying close attention to equinox, solstice, etc.
Very cool. Wow. Thank you guys again so much. It is 6 p.m. now.
Okay. Thank you.
So
thanks, Jay. Thanks for facilitating.
And thanks for your interest, and it's been wonderful talking with you.
Oh, well, thank you. No, I feel so bad because I came in so frazzled. I feel like I stressed you guys out rather than calmed you like I was supposed to. JD told me during our training sessions to calm the presenters. I felt like
we're unflappable.
But so we are definitely in our dinner break now, and the riverboat is open again, so folks are welcome to go hang out there. And I don't know if the presenters, if you guys will be there and want to continue the discussion here, but I am going to end the meeting now. And thank you.
Okay,
thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.